Welcome back to Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino, Vice President of Sales with Lapolis Electric. And this week, we have a special episode. We are shooting in Marco Island, Florida, at the 2024 TEG Principles and Diamond Word event. With me today, I have Gary Shamasko, Vice President of Solutions and Principal with Jamerson and Bowens from Chicago, Illinois. Gary, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Stephen. Very happy to be here and have listened to your podcast. Lapolis has done a great job and proud to be a guest.
Thank you very much, Gary. So, Gary, why don't we tee this off real quick and throw out a question here for the listeners on what are the key qualities to distinguish a high-performing sales rep from an average sales rep?
That's a great question, Stephen. And I think the first thing is, you shouldn't try to sell somebody. And so what do I mean by that? So nobody wants to be sold. I mean, you want to build that relationship, and sometimes that's a longer process, but we want to get it right. We want to build that relationship and have repeat customers, raving fans and fans for life, right? And especially when you look at everything's shifting. It's not the old guys like myself. It's the younger generation like yourself or people at mid-career. And your generation mid-career, people don't want to be sold. If you look at a model like a Tesla model, it's great.
Yeah.
You're not going to a dealership and negotiating. It's a one price model.
Everything's fixed.
Everything's fixed. And everybody likes that. And they're not trying to sell you. You're doing your research. You're coming into the experience. You've made your decision already. And it's more that customer service type model. Like going to a fine hotel like the hotel we're in today.
Correct.
It's a different experience. So you want to create that experience, build that slow relationship. And we're okay with letting that take a little bit longer to go and nurture because we think it sustains in the long run.
Correct. And you said something very important there, that customer service, because a lot of people have a misconception, being that we are in the trades, that customer service sometimes falls by the wayside. But guys like myself, you, and other members of the TEG franchise, we find customer service is one of the most important attributes of our teams that we offer our clients, and we run our day-to-day operations based on the white glove service, I like to call it, and Carmine Lapolis likes to call it, that we offer our clients, from the sales reps to the operations team to the technicians in the field. The client is the most important person in the equation.
Correct.
They're that constant variable, that we all want to make sure they're taken care of. The phone's answered, when it rings, and we live in a day where the digital era is taking over, and now because of these, we can be contacted, faster than ever, and clients expect that response.
You're always on.
Always on, and with what we do, nonetheless, we're not selling, soda here. We're selling technical services, and in some instances, life safety is a major factor in what we do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a large shutdown project or some type of emergency service call. The reliance that our client base and your client base has on yourself or your team to answer our phones and provide that next level of customer care, it's extremely important. So if you want to dive into that a little bit, what is your experience with being there for the client when they need you and just kind of offering that next level of customer service?
Well, you're exactly right, and you hit on a few topics. So this is our 50th year, and we've built our firm.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We built our firm based on that customer service model. And the biggest vertical that we deal with is healthcare. So it's that patient experience. It's all around the patient experience. If the patient likes it, it's the same thing we say about people, right? Everybody else is happy and everything else comes together. We'll dive into that in a few minutes. But if you look at our firm, we're kind of unique because we'll do probably 50% new construction, buildings out of the ground. The other 50% we like to say is a big service company. Why? Because of the mantra that you just explained. When we build one of these new buildings, we're kind of the leave behind. We're the house mice. Yeah. We stay there. So half of our crew reports to work someplace every day. And they stay with that customer, that raving fan, that customer for life. And so when we, joined the TEG franchise, even though we're saying half our firm is service, now we're diving into that true, that hate the phrase preventive, really predictive. And it's what you're doing, and that's what we do with our energized maintenance, right? It's more predictive.
Correct.
To try to be strategic and drill into what could happen and be that trusted advisor, which is used so loosely.
100%. And that's the big, you just hit on a major point for us, kind of summing up our franchise in a whole, that energized maintenance develops that baseline.
It does.
And it's like doing your annual checkup with a doctor.
Yes.
You go, you get your blood work, you get your blood pressure taken, height, weight, BMI, all that fun stuff. And that's what we're doing for people's facilities, especially mission critical facilities such as healthcare, data centers, industrial manufacturing, whatever the vertical market may be. We're making sure that there's no impending failure in the electrical infrastructure so their daily operations can run. And also, we're mitigating electrical fire hazards and building interruptions. Some major things, for people that have either patients or if they're backing up, data for Fortune 500 companies, whatever it may be that our clients are serving to the overall community, it's important that their electrical infrastructure is intact and properly operating. And that energized maintenance develops that baseline, that predictive tool, so people can understand what health their infrastructure's in. And we're not just coming in there and developing a picture book of problems for people. We're going in there. If we find, a thermal issue, we're fully troubleshooting it for them. If we find a visual or mechanical problem, whether it's a code issue or an improper install, we're assisting them in that remedial process to follow, finding the problem, offering that turnkey solution that is widely forgotten by other contractors in our industry.
And fully agree. And that's where, we like to call it being strategic, because you talk about energized maintenance, which is the way we felt it should always be communicated for many years. A lot of people call it, thermography, IR scanning, but that's really a bunch of people that are, running guns. They'll come in, they'll do something, but do they really go and scan properly? Do they have that gradient scale? I can't tell you the number of times that we have been called to look at a report because something maybe failed. Somebody had set the gradient scale the right way. And by doing that, it's a misnomer, it's misled, right?
Yep.
And then when you have the qualified and people that are NICET certified or, level 3 thermographers, which I believe both of our firms have, when you go in to do that, and they're also electricians, they can actually make some of those basic adjustments or corrections on the fly while they're there. Yeah. So now we're building customers for life. We're not just going to go and have to come back to rack up another, work order or service call or ticket. We want to fix what needs to be fixed when it needs to be fixed. And that's where, to be strategic, it's from a salesperson's perspective, because you can't be everything to everybody. You got to know the strengths, your strengths and your firm's strengths, and you got to go there. Again, you can't be everything to everybody, but you got to be strategic with the people you put in this role for that special, because it's a mindset. It's a special thing with that service tech that's going to go and perform, again, not just regular service, but this predictive, preventive maintenance and everything else.
100%. And you said something that I really like and I preach, especially to the reps that I'm training or, new members of our own tech division. When I speak about our services, I never call it infrared thermography. No. I always refer to what we do as energized electrical preventative maintenance programs. Because from top to bottom, like you had mentioned, we're doing everything from removing all the panel covers properly, panel skirts, dead front covers, the whole nine. We're completely undressing the panels. We're doing the full visual and mechanical inspection. We're doing the ultrasonic inspection. We're doing the infrared thermography. And then if we find hot spots during the infrared thermography, we're running full variable draws across that panel to troubleshoot why they have an infrared problem. And that's, a major point that separates us, I feel, from a lot of our competitors is, we're not just, like I said before, we're not just throwing a picture book on the client's desk and saying, good luck, have a nice day figuring this out. Because, like you had mentioned, I get calls all the time, hey, can you help me figure out what this infrared report means? I have no idea what they said.
And you're probably not emailing it either.
No.
Hand-delivered.
Hand-delivered. Hand-delivered.
In a timely fashion.
In a timely fashion.
Because if you're saying it's an emergency and it's a risk, you have to limited amount of time you can do that in. If you let it wait 3 weeks, it's not a risk anymore.
Yeah. It takes away the importance of the service that we're offering. You know, and aside from the testing aspect of the preventative maintenance programs we're offering, you know, we're also cleaning the exterior of the panels to eliminate dust, dirt, and debris from protruding into the panels and creating, you know, additional hazards. We're performing those minor repairs, and you know, we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the system before it gets to the point of performing a de-energized maintenance or an arc flash study.
Sure.
You know, and we're actually providing maintenance, and we're not just coming in there, shooting a couple of photos and leaving.
Yeah.
And
It's
also,
not a shoot and scoot.
not a shoot and scoot. And to add additionally, you know, to that, while we're talking about it, we're also taking a cover on and a cover off digital image of every single piece of equipment as well for reference purposes when we're diagnosing the infrared problems, and also so the facility has all these images as backup on hand for their own reference.
Sure. And you know, and you look at, you mentioned something earlier about ultrasonic. That always takes people by storm when we go into the ultrasonic, because a lot of people haven't heard of it. They think it costs more, but it's really, it's the franchise's way of doing stuff. It's a value add. So again, a little bit older than you. In the old days, we did ultrasonic. It was really for tracking for corona and medium voltage. But technology's come a long way. And so now by shooting that, we can hear what's going on before we try to attempt taking a cover off, and everything's going to work. It's much safer. 100%. So it's, again, safety of our people, but also added value for a client too, because downtime is money, right?
100%. And you know, it's extremely important. You know, the downtime is you know, aside from the safety aspect of it, is one of the major things that we're looking to mitigate for our clients.
Sure.
I want to throw another topic out there, you know, for some of the newer reps or other reps that may be out there selling that aren't aware of this, you know, in their day-to-day interactions with their clients or prospects. What does emotional intelligence mean to you when you're handling sales with a prospect or a client? How important is that?
So it's extremely important, and it's extremely important. Why? Because people buy from people. 100%. They're not buying from companies. It's a people thing, and that's why companies retain because somebody set in, but they normally follow that person if you built that relationship the right way. And when you look at it, it's really that relationship you build, and if we get the people thing right, and you know, we build everything else properly, and what does that mean? You know, you got to look at your operational efficiency, you know, your labor, your rates, and everything else that's in line and fair. And if we get all of that stuff right, the sales come, you know, and bigger comes too. But when you flip that stack and you worry about sales first, it really sustains and it doesn't come. Yeah. And so, and that comes back because, you know, that's really how, if I answered your question right, that's how I see that emotional intelligence. And when we look at that, when we're looking for, and we don't have a lot of salespeople at our firm, or business development people, but when you look at that, and what I'm going to say now, you can probably tell I have some conviction in general, we want to look for people, or we do look for people that have that sales mindset, because a lot of that stuff you can't teach. You can teach, you know, process and theory and everything else, but you have that nurturing, that sales mindset. And if they have that, we can work with it.
100%. And
they have to have that drive. You know, you need them to get out of bed in the morning, want to go and do something without being pointed to go everywhere. And then probably, you know, the biggest thing at doing that is we're not looking for somebody necessarily from this, you know, micro segment of what we're trying to put a business development or salesperson into. Yeah. We want them to know business in general, have a good, you know, business mindset, be a people person. We want them to know something about our industry, but for example, we're talking about TAG here today, and want somebody that knows the electrical business, but don't really care if they come from selling light switches or lamps. If they have those other traits we talked about, they're going to go and they're going to figure it out. They're going to kick in some doors, put their boots on, and get it done. Don't necessarily want the bad habits and the traits that come along because they sold service for somebody else, or they sold a specific thing for somebody else. We'll teach them that as long as they have those other traits.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, and recently within the past year, I had brought on 2 new reps, Giuseppe and Navpreet, younger guys, you know, around my age. And, you know, neither of them have necessarily been directly in the electrical industry before, but they possess the traits that you had just discussed that we look for. You know, the answering the phone whenever the phone rings,
Response time.
always being courteous to the client, always being, you know, respectful to the client, making sure if a request comes in, they're on top of it and they're on time with their response. And not only the response, but the request that may have been had from the client, making sure that everything is carried out in a timely manner and answering all the customer's requests accurately and diligently, you know, and being where they're supposed to be when they say they're going to be there, you know, and
Say, do, say.
100%, you know, and all the electric stuff, you know, the technicalities, how it's done, how we conduct a PSC or a site visit to develop the scope of work. In my eyes, that it's easier to teach somebody the electrical side than to teach somebody how to be a good sales rep and businessman, especially this day and age. If you're trying to find young reps that are motivated and out there ready to pound the pavement, few and far between, you know, and Carmine and I are very blessed to have brought two gentlemen on that are in my generation that wake up every morning with a fire lit under their ass to go out and sell and help our customers, you know, and it's truly a beautiful thing. And you know, I'm very proud of them, you know, because they're doing great and they get it. You know, they get that level of customer service. They understand how important it is to send that email out at a specific time of the day or to call their client, you know, when they told the client they were going to call them. You know, the follow-up, like you said, being where you're supposed to be when you're going to, you know, when you're supposed to be there. These are attributes that are extremely lost in today's generation of business. It's very sad, to be honest.
It really is, and you know, we all have companies and brands that we like. Don't need to mention them here, but everybody has those. And you look at those companies that have made it to that, you know, that multi-billion-dollar, that Forbes list, whatever you read, you know, whatever your vice is, you know, they're there because they did some of the things or many of the things that we're talking about here today.
Yeah.
And that's what we should aspire. It doesn't matter if we're in the electrical side of the business. Look at your favorite brand. Doesn't matter what vertical, what segment it's in, what you like. Could be a pizza place. Could be a shopping experience. Could be a resort like this. But, you know, follow that.
Yeah.
Follow that company. Follow that person that built it, that inspired it. And a lot of times, you know, it comes from how you set that leadership. Everything's from the top down.
Yep.
Now, that's not to be confused with. You want to power the people, and that's what our mindset is. You know, from the bottom up, but you got to inspire, and you got to set, you know, the vision from the top, and put the right people on the bus and have them run with it.
100%. And you made a good point a few minutes ago about people buy from people. That's one of the biggest things we preach in our office. You know, people buy from people.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're at a point where you're either cold calling for new business or dealing with a current client as an account exec, whatever the situation is, don't be technical 100% of the time.
No.
You know, you need to know who wants to talk to Steven Marcelino or Gary Shamasko. You know, do they want to just talk to us? Favorite sports team, food they ate over the weekend, whatever it may be that client likes. Or is it the type of person that is analytical and just wants to know about, you know, the service that they're buying, the numbers, you know, you have to know who you're dealing with.
You got to do your research, and it's you know, an old mantra, but it's true. Asking a question you don't already know the answer to. Now, you're not going to know everything, but you should not go in to see a client, especially, you know, an initial call, without doing some research. And you'd be surprised at people that don't do the research. And I know for myself, somebody comes in, whether it's an interview or they're coming in just to go and try to, you know, be a new vendor for us too. And it's like, then they ask us some fundamental questions about the business. You know, did you look at our website? Did you do research? And I know both of our companies do a good job. We take pride in what we do to put our digital presence out there. Yeah. And that's what we have to do. So we don't want our people to make that mistake.
Yeah, 100%. And the client profiles or the prospect profiles are extremely important, you know, and from day one, you know, we build our profiles based off of something called a BANT analysis, B-A-N-T.
Correct.
Budget, authority, need, and timeline. You know, and for every prospect that I have brought in, or Giuseppe brings in, or Navpreet brings in, or, you know, other reps bring in, a BANT analysis is required. So at all times, we know who we're dealing with, how important it is to them, what they can spend, because we'll tailor a service to whatever the budget is. It's not a one size, it's not a one size fits all type deal. Or is it? It is one size fits. No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
No. And it shouldn't be.
It
shouldn't be.
So, whether you have a 500,000 square foot facility with, 150 pieces of electrical equipment, or you have a 1,000,000 square foot facility with 1,000 electrical pieces of equipment, but you can only test $10,000 worth of equipment in a year, we'll develop the scope of work based off of the most critical area of the building and make sure that $10,000 goes to work for you so you get the best result with that money.
And that's the beauty about the franchise. We're not like some of the majors out there where you're just robots and you got your blinders on, go and do one thing. We have the ability and we have the processes in place to actually curtail that, and go wide and look at it, really personalize it. So you say something great there. I was glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, it's listen, the personal experience is what it's all about, and I think that's what really sets us apart from a lot of the, a lot of our competition out there. We pay attention to that personal service, the customer service, being, like I said before, being where we're going to be when we say we're going to be there. If it's on the schedule, you don't have to second guess if we're coming. We're going to be there. And
what you're doing too, or we're doing, all of us are doing. You build that brand, that brand for your firm, right? But you're also building your personal brand.
Yeah.
And a little different. We're here at a resort today, a beach resort. But I honor the fact that you come. This is your brand. You always show up in a suit and everything else too. And this is your podcast. Yeah. And you've built that personal brand. Yeah. And the way that you deal and interact with people too. That's what everybody has to do to a certain extent. But when you have your frontline technicians, because a lot of times our frontline technicians they spend more time with the client than sales does or anybody else in the firm.
Yep.
So it's their personal brand also and what people expect, besides the firm's, but it's your personal brand.
Yeah, that's really important, and I think I could speak on behalf of the franchise. Our technicians do a great job with the clients.
Yes.
And they're the reason that we're able to sit here today and do what we're doing,
right.
With these, different types of franchise outings and things of that nature, because that customer experience from the technicians that they're offering in the field allows that recurring customer base. It's a full
they sign our paycheck.
100%. Yeah. It's a full circle in my opinion, from sales to operations to the technicians. It all funnels back to that overall customer experience, which is very important.
And the most overused word in probably the English language right now is communication.
Yep.
Or globally. And so the big key here to what you said is that communication, everybody knows the process, the handoffs are there, and a lot of people get upset, but whether it's a handoff from estimating to sales to tender an offer, or once we have something to hand it off to the technician, communication is so important.
It's extremely important, and that, it's a dying attribute that a lot of firms don't possess, and fortunately, like you said, the processes and procedures that we follow here in the franchise, I think communication is one of the number one attributes we have up there with, some other top skills that our firms possess, and for the technicians, it's the simple things, just knocking on the chief engineer's door when they walk in, and they don't just barge in like they own the office. Making sure they wipe their boots off if there's mud on them before they walk through the halls. Paying attention to the facility if, they're there to test the panels, but they notice they have a banged up light fixture, saying, hey, Mr. Chief Engineer, your light fixture's out. This could be a potential problem for you, in this area. And just having that overall awareness and that overall care, for the client, it goes such a long way.
Again, it's branding, it's building that brand, and it's showing alignment too, because otherwise it's just sales.
That's it.
We talked about a lot of this stuff today already, but it's just sales. We are not here to sell somebody something. In my opinion, one person's opinion, you shouldn't want to be there to sell somebody. We said that. People don't want to be sold. We're a solutions provider.
100%. So Gary, let me ask you a question before we end this episode here, which I think it was a great episode. What role does resilience play in sales success, and how can reps develop this trait?
You know, that's I'm going to give you probably a different response. It's huge because doors are going to get closed in your face. So you have to have some resilience, some tenacity to keep going back, and you can't get discouraged. And a lot of people say that that's something you can teach somebody, may have a different opinion than most. I don't believe that that's a trait that you can really teach. It's a trait that somebody has, and they have to have, again, we talked about that mindset, that sales mindset, to be that professional. And if they have that, they can build on that, they can hone their skills, they can get better, but it's something they got to have. And again, we go and look for those individuals. It's somebody that's not going to, you can't get all emotional. Hey, somebody said no. People are going to tell you no. I don't know what the regular statistic is on that, but, yourself. Have you been told no? Do you get every order you go out on?
No, and that's perfect what you're saying now. I think resilience is built by being told no, re-strategizing, moving on to different opportunities, and coming back to the person that told you no.
And that's another good point. We talked earlier about when we're looking for individuals for this role, what traits they have to. And we want somebody who's been scarred.
Yep.
Doesn't matter, age, gender, anything else, but have you been scarred? Because textbook is great, but you need to have some of that real world experience, and you need to be scarred. Otherwise, if you've never been scarred, first time you go out there, you may check the box on all these other cultural index questions, but you're probably going to get a little emotional about it, right?
100%.
And not be very resilient.
For me, I came into my role as an MSR, maintenance sales representative, at 23 years old. Carmine Lapolis gave me my opportunity to sell TEG. At 23 years old, I was dealing with gentlemen that were potentially 25, 30, 40 years older than me.
And it worked out, didn't it?
Fortunately, it did. But resilience is a major part of my sales story. And I was dealing with directors of engineering with data centers, chief operating officers, owners of industrial manufacturing facilities, people that I personally never thought were going to give me the time of the day to speak with me because of my age, nothing else, because of my age. But I answered the phone whenever they called me. They needed me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was there for them. If I was told no, I would come back knocking 2 weeks later with a different strategy. And building that resilience, almost like an armadillo with its shell. You gotta just get back up and keep fighting.
You do.
And that's really what it comes down to. Listen, Gary, I really appreciate you coming here today and
Thanks.
And speaking with us
Appreciate it.
on this episode of Beyond the Blueprint. It was an awesome episode, and I just want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Another episode of Beyond the Blueprint podcast, powered by Lapolis Electric. I'm your host, Stephen Marcelino. Have a great day.